Okay, so let's just start by saying, forget everything you think you know about ancient India. Seriously, it wasn't just all meditation and finding your inner peace. We're going to dive into this ancient, thousands of years old rulebook for kings, and it's a world of cutthroat political strategy, believe it or not, all tied up with cosmic order.
You know, there's this quote from a political scientist, Morris Jones, who said something pretty wild. He said the neglect of Indian political thought will result into the impoverishment of the West. I mean, that's a huge claim, right? But today, we're going to see why he might have been onto something. There's this incredibly deep well of political wisdom here that for a long time has just been kind of overlooked.
So when I say ancient India, what pops into your head? For most of us, it's probably, spiritual gurus, enlightenment, a world really focused on the divine. And that's fair, but the world of politics, of pure statecraft and power, we tend to think of that as more of a Western thing, don't we?
Okay, but what if I told you that some of the oldest texts from India are actually these super practical, no-nonsense guides to governance? I'm talking about detailed ideas on where the state even comes from, what a ruler is supposed to do, and even nitty-gritty stuff like how to tax people.
So the big question is, why? Why was this whole political side so often missed, especially by Western observers? Well, according to scholars like V.R. Mehta, it all boils down to a really fundamental difference in worldview.
Think about it like this. Western thought often sets things up as a conflict, right? It's man versus society, nature versus culture, politics versus ethics. But the ancient Indian perspective, it's totally different. It sees continuity. It's not versus, it's and. Man and society, politics and ethics. They're all seen as interconnected parts of one big system. And getting that one little shift in perspective is absolutely the key to unlocking their whole political philosophy.
And right at the heart of this whole interconnected worldview, you've got two pillar concepts. Everything else is built on them. And they are Dharma and Danda.
Okay, first up, let's talk about Dharma. Now, you might see this translated as religion, but scratch that. It is so much bigger than that. Think of it as the cosmic law, the fundamental principle that literally holds everything together. It's justice, it's duty, it's the right way for society to be ordered. And if you go against Dharma, well, you're basically just asking for chaos.
So if Dharma is the grand cosmic blueprint for a perfect, stable society, then Danda is the toolkit. It's the practical power you need to actually build and protect that society. We're talking about the power of the state, the rule of law, the ability to punish people who step out of line, all the political muscle needed to keep things in order.
And this is where you see that politics and ethics just can't be pulled apart in this way of thinking. That ideal order, Dharma, it's a beautiful idea, but it's just an idea without the real-world power of the state, Danda, to make it happen. You absolutely cannot have one without the other. They're two sides of the same coin.
Okay, so what happens if you don't have Danda? What if there's no state, no one to enforce the rules? Well, the ancient texts have this terrifyingly perfect way of describing that exact scenario.
It's called Matsya-Nyaya, the law of the fish. And it's exactly what it sounds like. A world of total anarchy where the big fish just eat the small fish. The strong prey on the weak. Might makes right, and that's the only rule. It's this brutal, chaotic free-for-all that these thinkers believed was the default setting for humanity if you didn't have a ruler.
So, how do you get out of that nightmare? How did humanity escape the law of the fish? Well, according to these stories, the solution wasn't something people just came up with on their own. It took a little bit of divine intervention. What we get is basically an ancient social contract theory, but with this really cool divine twist. The story goes like this. The world is in total chaos. People are desperate, so they plead to the creator god Brahma for a ruler. Brahma hears them and creates Manu, the very first king. And then a deal is struck. The people agree, we will obey your laws. And in return, the king promises, I will protect you from the law of the fish. It's a pact.
All right, so we've got a king. But here's the thing. His power wasn't absolute. Not at all. It came with this massive set of responsibilities. You could call it the most comprehensive job description ever, and it's known as Raja Dharma, literally the duties of the king.
And this job went way beyond just winning battles. First and foremost, the king had to rule himself. That meant strict personal discipline, no excessive gambling, drinking, that kind of stuff. Then there was public welfare. He was responsible for everything from building roads and wells to taking care of orphans. But his core mission, his prime directive, was Raksha and Palan,
which means the protection and the maintenance of every single one of his subjects. And yes, a part of that was upholding the social order of the time, known as Varna Dharma.
And you can see how practical these ideas were. This wasn't just high-minded philosophy. Let's talk about something really down-to-earth: taxes. The Manusmrithi lays out this really clear system of progressive taxation. The king's cut of the crops was directly tied to how good the land was. If your land was super fertile, you paid a bit more. If it was less fertile, you paid less. It's a system built on a pretty clear idea of fairness, isn't it?
And that really brings us full circle, back to where we started. This famous scholar, Max Muller, he basically said that nowhere else in the world has the human mind wrestled with the big questions of life, and that includes politics and how to govern, with such depth as it did in India. It's just this incredibly rich tradition, full of ideas about justice, duty, and what power is even for.
So let me leave you with the thought. These ancient texts were demanding that a ruler's job was to protect the weak, provide for the people, and crucially, lead with personal integrity. So how different is that from what we expect from our leaders today, really? And what could we maybe learn from a tradition that didn't see ethics and power as separate things, but as two sides of the exact same coin?